Excellent, excellent.
Yep.
I imagine that there would have been some fairly lively discussion. I've worked with a number of people where they've actually really held on to experiences like this, and they've allowed them to affect the way they look at life and to impact on their choices. Now, feel free in the chat box if you'd like to share something that you discussed in the group. Please to share something that you offered, just for privacy. Just we don't want people sharing somebody else's. But feel free if you have something you think we'd all benefit from in the chat, the experience and how you saw that. My goal with that little exercise was to help express the impact that we experience when we don't get feedback. If we don't know how others feel about what we've done, if we don't know about how well we've done, we don't know if we're improving or if we're going backwards. And so feedback in general is a really strong way, not just to help people understand where they stand, but it's also very important for teams. Studies have also shown when you work in a team, if there's little feedback for the team itself is not empowered, which makes sense. Why would a team feel empowered if they never got any feedback about how they were doing? But it's so much the same for us as individuals as well. So being aware then that if we're not provided with feedback, we don't know where we stand. We don't know if we're growing. So let's then jump forward and recognize that this is why in Toastmasters we evaluate. It's such a core component. Every meeting, the first half of the meeting in most structures, most meetings, the structure is the first half of the meeting is the delivery and the presentations, and the second half of the meeting is the feedback. Without evaluation, if there's no feedback, we do things over and over, trying to work out for ourselves what didn't work, and then we feel defeated when no matter how hard we try, each attempt is still not as good as it can be because we just don't know. Versus the opportunity of when we do get feedback, we discover concepts that only those that have gone before us know. We can't know what we don't know unless somebody tells us, or we have the opportunity to learn. And it's when we get that feedback, we can hear and understand from others what works. We then have these new ideas and practices that allow us to develop and further develop the skills and thinking that we didn't have yesterday. So this is where the big disparity is of an experience of anybody between getting feedback and not getting feedback. And this is where the truth really hits. Because the question I'm going to ask now is, Toastmasters, we do feedback because it's on the agenda. How well do we do feedback in our lives? Whether it's at work, whether it's socially, whether it's with family. Do we let people know how well they're doing, how much they've grown, that we recognize the attempts and the efforts that they're taking? This is where the importance lies. It is a life skill in being able to evaluate. And when we have a look at the damage that can be left behind on those who don't receive feedback, and then on the other side of the coin, how much growth and development can be achieved when feedback is provided, that it's an important understanding. So having said that, let's address the question, who am I to provide feedback to experienced Toastmasters? Who am I who hasn't been around to learn a great deal? What value can that possibly be? Let's talk about why we can learn from anybody. And there's 3 reasons. And luckily enough, they're the 3 E's. And the first E is their experience. Okay, so it's not how experienced they are, but the fact that they experienced your effort. They experienced what you attempted, and then how it affected them. So even though you may be a new Toastmaster, first meeting, you're sitting there and people are, club members are presenting a speech. Guess what? You experience that speech. You think things while they're delivering that speech. And so while you're in the audience and experiencing their speech, your thoughts about that, what you took out of it, how much it impacted you, what you learned from it. Do you think that's important for the presenter to know? Absolutely. Absolutely. If you ever have the fear of providing feedback, give it. It is gold. Your opinion, your thoughts, your experience has worth. Even though you may be talking to someone that's been in Toastmasters and gone through a whole heap of learning, there is, and I can tell you from experience, some of the greatest insights I've received on my recent presentations have been from people who don't know vocal variety, stage presence, pitch, use of gestures. When they just give it to me raw about what it was like for them to experience the presentation, it just gave this raw, what was the impact? And it was so valuable, so valuable. Now, let's not take anything away. There is certainly benefit in the structured evaluation where we talk about and recognize the opportunities for skills and tools that we can use to deliver. But there is just as much value in raw, this is what I saw. This is how what you did impacted me. So the audience's experience is the first E. The next E is their expectation. Anyone can provide information on what they expected to happen versus what actually happened. Okay, if you're providing a speech and it's a research topic around, I don't know, the use of, why did I go into something unprepared? A research topic around the use of reusable rockets. If they know that's what the speech is about, then they can provide feedback on how that went for them. Did they get what they expected from the presentation? Now, again, you don't need to have been a Toastmaster for 2 years to be able to provide feedback on, was it what you expected? And the final E is their example. Everyone has their own life experiences that can support you, whether they're an expert in the field or not. So just in getting feedback from anybody, you're going to get different perspectives. And let's face it, when you present to an audience, it's not 1,001 type of people. It's 1,000 different people, and they all have their own experiences. They all have their own expectations. And so that is why when we present, we can learn from anybody. Anybody. And this is important to note. For presenters, you have to be open. You have to be willing to listen and really hear the feedback. And for those of you providing the feedback, you have to be willing to give of yourself. What you think, how you feel, what you experienced has value. And so we can learn from anybody, but also we can help anybody learn. You'll notice that all of those E's don't mention Toastmasters once. How they experienced, recognizing the effort that was put in, what they expected and what actually happened, life experiences. Yes, that's Toastmasters, but it's also work. It's also the sporting club. It's also the family. And so we can learn from anybody, but we can also be there for others in being willing to be able to provide feedback. And if we're asked for feedback, we should feel blessed almost in the opportunity to support someone in finding out more about themselves and our experience in what they provided. Okay, I've got the yellow light. I just want to allow a couple of minutes for questions if anybody has a question. Sue, I don't know the best way to do this. If we want somebody to unmute and ask a question, I think, or hand up. Can you see the grid to do the hands? So if you've got a question, pop your hand up. Sue will recognize you and open your microphone. Just a couple of minutes. We've only got 2 minutes before we're wrapping up. I see Joe Matakis.
Okay, Darrell. Darrell, just how do you handle someone who doesn't like your evaluation?
If someone doesn't like your evaluation, that's fine. Because seriously, if you were honest with your feedback, then how they and what they do with it is completely up to them. I've seen some members have a really negative response to receiving feedback. The key is it's one person's opinion, and what you do with it is up to you. Okay, and I think that's the thing to remember is if you've got 1,000 people in the audience and they also say something different, it's not as though everybody is right or everybody is wrong. Everybody has their opinion. And so you take it for what it is, one person's opinion, and it works both ways. But great question, Joe. Anybody else? One more I think we've got time for.
There's some in the chat box, Darrell.
Oh, there's some in the chat box? Oh, the role of the general evaluator. Liz?
Come
yes.
on, bring it on. What are your thoughts?
I think evaluating the evaluators, what is an evaluation? It's essentially an expression, a communication of their thoughts and feelings. And essentially it's a table topic, except they've had a chance to prepare. So just like people get up and present prepared speeches, an evaluation is a prepared speech. And so we can provide feedback on what worked in the evaluation, what didn't work, how was the structure. And today we're going to see the how and the practical application of it. And so there's an opportunity on how to give feedback better and how to grow from that. So I think the general evaluator, the way I look at it is the general evaluator evaluates everything that hasn't been evaluated already, because it's the opportunity for the club as a whole to grow. The Toastmaster gets some feedback. The Harkmaster gets feedback. The evaluators get feedback. The Sergeant at Arms gets feedback. And to be completely honest, the general evaluator has the biggest opportunity to impact how strongly a club works by being real, by actually saying, yes, the speeches were great, but the rest of the meeting, these things worked really well. And there's a couple of things maybe that we could look at better. Let's not start 5 minutes late next time and just say it as it is. I think a really good question. And red light, thank you very much, Chris. Not a question, but that's it. I'm going to wrap up there and I'm going to hand it back to Joe. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity. Chris, for asking me to, and Nick, obviously, as Division Director, to present today. And I'm really looking forward to our upcoming presenters because I always learn every time I see Nick Castelline or Joe Kneebone present, I walk away with like pages of notes. So we're looking forward to it. Handing back to our Toastmaster. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Darrell. What a fantastic why session. So let's give him a big round of applause, guys. Come on, let's get your screens up.